We all know the phrase NES hard, and there are plenty of games that have kicked our butts over the years that live up to that phrase. But not every game on the original Nintendo is painfully difficult, and today we're going to talk about some nice chill games that you can just kind of relax that will not raise your blood pressure. Many of these are also good if you have a young kid and you want to get them into video games, so be sure to let me know what some of your favorite easy Nintendo games are down in the comments, and let's get into it. Our first game on the list is Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers 2. You could probably make a case for the first one as well, but I played that so much as a kid, it's hard for me to objectively evaluate its difficulty. I didn't play this game until well into my adulthood, and the first time I played it, I just breezed through it, barely dying, and had a ton of lives in reserve when I beat the game. It follows the basic structure of the original. You play as either Chip or Dale, but can play in co-op, making your way through a series of linear platforming levels to take down Black Cat. You have all your moves from the original, with your attacks primarily coming from items you could pick up to throw at enemies, mostly boxes. You could also now throw diagonally, which is new, and you could charge the box by running before you throw it, which deals more damage to bosses and can take out some tougher enemies in one shot. This was a very late release in the NES lifespan. It's one of the last games to come out in the system. Graphically, it is great, but I don't know that it's too much of an upgrade over the original. The sense of scale is not as well done. Like in the original, you always felt like a little chipmunk running around the real world with oversized items everywhere. This game doesn't nail that as much in most of the levels. The boss designs receive a graphical upgrade though. They are generally more detailed and just cooler looking in this game as opposed to the original. I think this is a great easy NES game. Its adorable aesthetic and co-op gameplay make perfect to introduce to a younger kid. At the same time, if you're like me and grew up with the Rescue Rangers, there's a good chance you never played it, as it didn't come out until 1994, and by that time most of us have moved on to the Super Nintendo. Heck, the PlayStation was going to come out a year later. It's a lot of fun, and if you love the original, you will definitely love this one as well. Dynowarz is a pretty fun and very simple NES game. Some might call it a hidden gem, others would call it total trash. I personally am in the hidden gem camp. I think this is a really fun little game, but it is rough around the edges, so I can understand the people who don't like it. Regardless of your feelings on its quality, it definitely is not a challenging game. You start out as a little guy running through a level, there's some basic platforming and enemies, and you eventually find your giant dinosaur to ride in. Once you hop aboard your dino, you go out into the world and fight everything you see. You start out each level with just a little punch. You're a T-Rex kind of thing, so the punch doesn't have much range, but you do get weapons and you could upgrade them by collecting the same weapon multiple times. The weapon variety is mostly nice. My personal favorite was the rocket punch. The sense of scale in this game is not really terrific. You're playing as a giant dinosaur, but the screen is really zoomed out, so you don't really feel like a giant dinosaur, which is a bit disappointing. Compare this to something like the Godzilla game, where the Godzilla sprite takes up basically the entire screen. But on the upside, the large screen real estate means you could always see the threats ahead of you. You get to the end of the level, hop out of your dino to blow up some device, then jump back in and repeat. It's similar to Blaster Master in that sense, nowhere near as good as that, but I always think it's fun when you're jumping in and out of vehicles in any game, and since I love dinosaurs so much, this game really appealed to me. You get a long health bar, unlimited continues, and a password feature. It's not a long game, you can beat it in one sitting, but it's always nice to have a password option in case you don't have time. I really enjoy this game. The physical is dirt cheap if you like collecting, and it's a nice relaxing playthrough. Perfect for fans of action platformers who just want a nice chill game or kids who love dinosaurs. Monster in My Pocket is a fairly late NES release made by Konami, who is responsible for some of the hardest NES games out there, especially Castlevania 3, so this game is a bit of a departure from a lot of their other hits. It was based on a license which had a toy line, and I think a show that was going to happen but never really took off, and as you playing as either Dracula or Frankenstein's monster. There's not really any gameplay difference between them, but the game does feature two-player co-op, which was actually pretty unique for 2D platformers back on the NES. Much like the aforementioned Rescue Rangers, you are playing as tiny monsters fighting other tiny monsters, and the game does a really nice job of showing you just how small you are as you navigate massive obstacles like your basic kitchen chair or staircase. It's a cool gimmick and works well in this game. The graphics here are really polished as well, which is what you'd expect from Konami, especially this late in the lifespan of the NES. Gameplay is really simple. Your character has an attack and a double jump, and that's really it. You navigate through 6 levels filled with platforms platforming and tons of enemies to smash. Although the level design is really fun, it's just not really challenging. The enemies just kind of run at you for the most part. There's a few flying enemies that are annoying, but once you figure out how they work, you easily dispatch them and are nowhere near as difficult as the famous bats and Medusa heads that Konami is known for. The combat is simple, the platforming is relatively simple, the game provides a generous amount of health pickups, and the boss patterns are simple. The whole game could be beaten in maybe 20 or 30 minutes. If you're an experienced gamer, you're likely to beat it the first time you play it. It's still fun though. This is the perfect game if you just want to relax and mindlessly run through levels, with a great game to play with a kid or a friend who wants to try Nintendo but probably isn't up to the challenge of the harder stuff on the system. This is definitely not Konami's best game, but its fun, simple gameplay is still charming enough to want to check out. You can't have an easy NES games list and not mention Kirby. This is the kind of game that, despite its lack of challenge, is just so incredibly fun and endearing. I remember when I first played it, and I realized you could fly infinitely. I just didn't get it. At first, I'm like, this is supposed to be a platformer where I can just fly over everything? What's the point? But it only took a few minutes to recognize that the magic of these games is not in its devilishly difficult level design, rather it's just about fun gameplay and exploring this magical world. I have a 5-year-old daughter who walked by as I was recording footage for this video. She is usually pretty critical of my gaming choices, but she instantly fell in love with this game. She sat on my lap and was directing me which doors to go in, how I should play the mini games, and she was so fascinated by the different powers I could obtain by eating enemies. She ordered me to eat everything just to see what happens, and when an enemy didn't grant me a power, so I would spit them out as a star, she was just as impressed at that. She didn't want me to stop playing. She loved the adorable visuals and the magic that this game presented. For anyone watching who has kids, you know that one of the most fun things about parenthood is experiencing things for the first time again through their eyes. Watching my daughter get so enthralled in this game and everything it offered reminded me of that magical time of my youth, when I couldn't wait to pull blades of grass out of the ground in Super Mario 2 or any other Nintendo mysteries I sought to uncover. That's what makes Kirby such a great addition for this list. What it lacks in challenge, it makes up for in magic and discovery, and should definitely be on anyone's list of must-play easy NES games. Felix the Cat was one of the later NES releases, coming out in 1992, so it didn't get much fanfare at the time, but nowadays many people know about it, as it has become a little pricey but has also received physical reprints on modern systems. I never played this game as a kid. In fact, I didn't play it until I was 36. I had a job interview a couple hours away, and I got there really early, so I parked a couple of blocks from the job, and took out my laptop, and just randomly started playing Felix on emulator for the first time. I was instantly hooked. It's a standard action platform with some really nice graphics and sounds, definitely one of the better looking NES games. The Felix the Cat sprite is brilliant, and really does the classic nature of the character justice. I never knew that Felix was the first ever character on broadcast TV way back in 1928 until now. The levels and bosses are all pretty simple, but every world has you collect these little cat icons, and you get enough of them, you get to transform. There are 3 stages total to transform into, each granting different attacks and an extra hit points. Once you're fully powered up, collecting a transformation icon grants you an extra life, so you tend to accumulate lives pretty quickly in the early game, and all the transformations are adorable. It was really fun seeing what different vehicles Felix would turn into, and which different attacks he would have. Your basic 3 stages have you turning into a wizard, then a car, and finally a tank. But different worlds get you access to all sorts of crazy stuff, like planes, submarines, and even a little umbrella. It was always so much fun experimenting with all these different power-ups, and it really makes the game stand out among other cartoony platformers on the system. I was really blown away when I played this as an adult with zero nostalgia for this game or Felix the Cat in general. It's a charming, wonderful game that would take you a little over an hour to beat, and it's perfect to just chill out and enjoy the scenery and cool transformations, while its adorable aesthetic make it another game perfect for kids to try. This is the kind of game that if it was released early, it would be in everyone's favorite games list. Unfortunately, its late release didn't get the love it deserves, but definitely one you need to check out. Kung Fu is, in my opinion, one of the best arcade ports on the system. I could have featured this on my episode about NES games better than the arcade, and I feel that this is the definitive way to play this game. The gameplay is really simple. You walk either left or right, and a bunch of enemies who really want to hug you come running at you. But you're not super into public displays of affection, so you just kick or punch them to send them a strong message that you don't like to be touched. The collision detection in this game is just so satisfying. Every punch and kick has a really nice snap to it. In my opinion, it's one of the best sounding beat 'em ups out there, and just watching the enemies fall off the screen as you pummel them is equally satisfying. As the game progresses, so too does the enemy variety. You quickly run into guys in white who throw knives at you, and later floors introduce you to stuff like snakes, dragons, and flying insects, among other enemies. There are 5 floors total that each end in a boss fight, most of which you could just kind of mash attack and they'll die before you do if you're quick enough. The last boss in particular is really simple. You just stand about a foot's distance away and low sweep him repeatedly, slowly but surely to whittle down his health. I think this fight was the inspiration for the shadow fight in Zelda 2, as the strategy to win is totally identical. The whole game will take you maybe 10 to 15 minutes to beat, and you can keep looping it like many classic titles, but it's just such a satisfying and fun game to play. This is one of those games that I revisit every year, just to blow off steam for 10 minutes before going to play something harder. I think most of us have played this game, but if you haven't, definitely give it a shot. It's super fun, with really crunchy, satisfying combat, and one of the shortest playthroughs on the system. I was kind of on the fence at my last game, Mega Man 5. I played so many of these games, it's hard to evaluate whether or not this is easy compared to other NES games, but it definitely is the easiest Mega Man, and I think anyone who is interested in retro games needs to play Mega Man, and this one is a little more accessible than the other entrees, and a great starting point for inexperienced gamers who want to check the series out. The Buster Shot is super OP in this game. It rips through most enemies and does pretty massive damage to the bosses. That's actually one of the big reasons this game is the easiest Mega Man. In most of these games, it's pretty tough beating that first boss without having their weakness, but in this game, the Charge Shot is just so strong. You can beat just about every boss in the game pretty easily with just that. That's not to say that the other weapons aren't useful or fun. Like any Mega Man game, they're a mixed bag. My favorite weapon is definitely the Gravity Shot, which just swoops enemies off the screen completely. It's just so much fun to use. On the other end of the spectrum, we get the Charge Kick, which activates when Mega Man slides, and is probably the worst weapon in series history. But there are some other cool weapons, like the Star Shield and the Guided Gyro Shots. You could also unlock Beat by collecting hidden letters in each level, and he acts as a homing device, pecking everything to death, which is really cool and a must-have for the final wily fight at the end. The level design is also really fun, with some unique gameplay elements. You get a little vehicle section where you drive through shooting everything. Gravity Man stage has you inverting gravity, which is always a cool mechanic, and this really spiky elevator, which is probably the hardest part of the game, but it's not too difficult and it's fun to navigate. To further ease the difficulty, the number of 1-ups the enemy drops in this game is just insane. Enemies in the whole series will occasionally drop a 1-up, but in this game, it just happens like all the time. Sometimes I would just find myself with a surplus of like 9 lives, which is pretty unprecedented for the series. The game does not have the nostalgia of Mega Man 2, the challenge of 1 and 3, or the innovation of 4 and 6, but I still love it, and is one of my most replayed in the series. It's a great starting point for anyone looking to get into the Blue Bomber. So let me know which easy NES games I missed and that maybe should be on a future list. And let me know if you think I'm crazy and maybe some of these games are actually hard. I don't think so though.